Who are still just getting some refreshments and whatever, but because of time I'm not going to wait. We're going to continue on. Is that okay? Is that okay? Yes! Oh, you're getting the hang of it now. How you doing at the front? It's great. The people at the front just get picked on. But it's okay, don't worry. Maybe because you're special. Yeah? Alright, lovely. I'm picking someone else at the front now as well. Okay. We are going to be favoured with a song. The young man, his name is Jamie Phillips. He's sitting on the keyboard now. I'm not sure how many numbers he will do, but he will introduce himself to you. But just give him a hand that he prepared himself.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Evening all. Everybody okay? Yeah, you sound good, man. You sound good. Contrary to what it says on the OHP and in your little handout, my name is actually James Phillip. Don't get it confused. If you call out Jamie on the street, I may not respond. I'm not a rude person like that. Basically, I'm a local musician. I also teach music to parents if you want the kids to learn. I'm your man. Boy, what can I say? Yeah, teach, I produce, sing, songwrite. Gonna do a little song for you in a moment. I did have one thing to say. I noticed that Rebecca said that she's currently following her dream, and that's something that I'm also pursuing myself. But my dream is not necessarily to be famous or to earn loads of money, you know, get 10 album deal from Sony or anything like that. My dream is actually to make a living out of what I enjoy doing most, and that's basically what I'm trying to do right now. And I think for any of you young achievers out there, the best way for you to do that is go and get a decent education. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, it may not work out for me, you may never see me on the big screen, but guess what? I got a degree, I got my GCSEs, I got my A-levels, so no matter what happens, I cannot fail. And that's the same for you, okay? I'm gonna sing this little song.
No, you know what, you can do better than that. Give him a hand, please. Absolutely fantastic too. James Phillips Jr., just to be corrected, that's fantastic. I'm a great lover of music myself, and absolute great talent, and I wish you every success to you, James. As he says, parents, you want your children to learn to play the piano, the keyboard. Isn't it good? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, we're also going to be favoured at this time by two young ladies. One young lady, okay, let me keep talking. If I look at anybody, they'll put me off. Two young ladies is what I've been told. I believe the names are Simone and Ashley. Now, I believe Ashley's coming first. Is it two young ladies? Is the gentleman and the young lady? Let me just call the names. Simone and Ashley. Give them a hand as they come, please. And you are? Okay. Sometimes it's better not to make any presumptions, but just to speak and read what you've been given. My apologies to you. Ashley and Simone, you're singing alone. Okay, lovely. Ashley, give a hand to Ashley, please.
The song entitled I'm going to sing is called Jesus Care. I'm from the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Luton, and basically the song talks about when you think that no one's there for you, God's always there for you when you go through trials and tribulations. Does Jesus care when my heart is sad, too deeply for a song? As the burdens press and the cares distress, and the nights are weary and long. Oh yes, He cares. I know He cares. I know my Savior cares. When the days are weary and the long nights seem dreary, I know my Savior cares. Does Jesus care when I've said goodbye to the dearest on earth to me? As the burdens press and the cares distress, and the nights are weary and long. Oh yes, He cares. I know He cares. I know my Savior cares. When the days are weary and the long nights seem dreary,
I won't say good evening once again because I'm sure you're tired of saying good evening to everyone that comes up, but good evening anyway. Okay, now I'm going to sing a song which probably most of you will know it, and it talks about the mountains that we face in life and the trials that we face. And again, it's a gospel song. If you want to hear any more gospel, next Saturday at Nando's, there's more gospel music and carols. So I know most of us love Nando's. Okay.
Simone, and Mr. Keyboardist. Now, if you look in your brochures, or your programs rather, you'll see the order of the evening. And still to come, we have some of the awards for the various stages: Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, 3 and 4. And for the most improved pupils across all stages. So a long list of names will be coming to those pupils very, very shortly. But before we do that, I just want to welcome the keynote speaker for this evening. Many of you, he's been to Luton on a number of occasions already, and he goes by the name of Professor Gus John. I'm going to ask you to give a very warm round of applause to Professor Gus John. And I've also had the pleasure of, dare I say, working with him before, and he has the ability to speak without using the mic, so listen carefully.
I want to greet you in peace and with love. Just a couple of things about myself. I am the chair of an organization called the Communities Empowerment Network, which some of you at least would have encountered. We do quite a lot of work with young people around school exclusions and working with schools to minimize the number of black students, boys in particular, being excluded. I work as a professor of education in the Faculty of Education at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, and I run a management consultancy company called the Gus John Partnership. I live in Manchester, from which I've just come, and I gave myself a grand tour of Luton for some 35 minutes or so, trying to find this place. I want to greet, I think, 4 generations of people in here this evening. And I particularly want to greet the elders in our midst and the very young children in our midst. This gathering reminds me very much of the sort of gathering we had regularly, practically every week, in our villages in the Caribbean, and the sort of gathering that still comes together right now in different parts of Africa. I spent 4 weeks in Nigeria in the summer doing some work with lawyers, with educationalists, and with chiefs and obas in villages. And this has resonances of the sorts of gatherings that I was privileged to work with during those 4 weeks. I want to begin with a quotation. It's part of a resolution, and I'll tell you where it came from in a moment, that there should be the maximum participation of Africans at all levels of administration, that the present inferior political, economic, and social status of the African peoples militates against the achievement of harmonious cooperation among the peoples of the world. And in that same resolution, the people who gathered at that particular event were calling for equal opportunities for all colonial and colored people in Great Britain, demanding that discrimination on account of race, creed, or color be made a criminal offense by law. That was 1945. The event was the 5th Pan-African Congress held at Chorlton Town Hall in Manchester. And at that were a number of people, some of whom became familiar household names across the world. George Padmore, Jomo Kenyatta, Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and many others. Amy Jakes Garvey, wife of Marcus Garvey, was at that conference. And at the conference were black people who had lived and worked and struggled and mobilized in England since the late 19th century. Many of them were veterans of the First World War between 1914 and 1918. But the majority of them were academics and intellectuals who had come from their islands or countries to Britain as island scholars to study medicine, engineering, science, and a whole lot of other things besides. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I think it's quite important that we relate what we're doing here today to that history. We need to see ourselves right now as being in a continuous relationship with those people. In the same way that those very young children in our midst now need to see themselves and the way they chart their future in a continuous relationship with what I call that heroic generation. And there are many in this room. Those people who came after the Second World War, whether it be on the Windrush or by whatever other means, that heroic generation who were able to occupy the political space which the George Padmores and Kenyattas and Milliards and the rest had won for us through the struggles that they put down in this place up to and after 1945. And before I want to talk about education specifically, let me say one more thing. Amongst them in Manchester in 1945 were people from across the Caribbean and what was then British Guyana, and people from across the African continent, working together. There was a League of Colored Peoples, there was the West African Students' Union, there was the West Indian Students' Union, working together. And they determined that they needed to collectivize their actions in order to bring an end to imperialism and colonialism across the world. And those were the demands. If you were to read this book, the 1945 Manchester Pan-African Congress Revisited, you would read the resolutions that they came up with, that they took to the British government. And I'm making one simple point, that if in the second half of the 19th century, throughout the 20th century, we could have had that degree of mobilization and unity of purpose amongst African people from the continent and African people from the diaspora in the Caribbean, then there's no reason why we should be afraid of one another now. So let us understand our common heritage and our common struggle, and as African people from the continent and in the diaspora work together to secure a brighter future for our children and to eradicate racism from our lives. Now, in the context of this particular evening, let me say one more thing. The situation in this country has been such that our children, in particular those who are still young, below the age of 15, have grown up with the notion that we as black people are intellectually incapable and we do not have an intrinsic ability to be successful. That has been their experience in this society. And one of the reasons why I am delighted and it warms my heart to see so many of you here is that for that very reason, it is important that we celebrate the achievement of our children. We hear a lot about levels of underachievement, particularly amongst black boys. The whole discourse about education in this country is in terms of underachievement. And what I am saying to you is, we need to take responsibility ourselves as a black community to project in front of everybody, and our children in particular, those who are, by virtue of discipline, application, commitment to their own ideals, are successful. Because for every 10 and 20 and 100 who are numbered amongst the underachievers, there's another 20 who are high flyers. And we come from an experience, a history, where it was not seen as something out of the ordinary. That the children of parents who were illiterate like mine, who spend their lives running behind cows and planting yams and growing bananas, should aspire to be high court judges, doctors, lawyers, airline pilots, and the rest of it. It was not unnatural. Our parents, in spite of their poverty and their illiteracy, had high aspirations for us. They taught us the values which made us have high aspirations for ourselves. And therefore the teachers, who were naturally disposed in that direction anyway, boosted our high aspirations and conducted themselves in a manner that enabled us to realize our ambitions. So I'm talking now about an education culture in those so-called backward countries that was far superior to that which we are having to experience right now. I was a deputy director of education in the Inner London Education Authority for 3 years, having worked with Manchester Education. I was a chief education officer and head of the director of leisure and education in the London borough of Hackney, that glorious wild place, for almost 8 years. And bruises and all, I am here to tell the tale. One of the things that caused me great distress as the director of education was the view amongst many teachers and head teachers that because of where those children lived in Hackney, the background from which they came, the schools should not expect more of them. A kind of social determinism and defeatism which was itself the cause of what I call the abandonment of hope and the death of aspiration. And we had to fight that culture amongst teachers and head teachers, but increasingly amongst black parents themselves. I recruited 50 teachers from Trinidad to come and teach in Hackney. Not because I wanted to do some kind of a brain drain in Trinidad, but because having squandered the oil money, they went to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank to get some loans. And the IMF imposed some conditionalities on them which said, if you want our money, you should get rid of so many percentage of your public servants. So they were getting rid of teachers. They were getting rid of primary health workers, decimating the place. And I decided that if those teachers were getting such good results in Trinidad, they would get them in Hackney. Over 37% of all the students in Hackney at that time were black and from the Caribbean. And they came, and what did they experience? Let me tell you two of the things. First, the rate at which their own children regressed when they joined the schools in Hackney. Second, the number of black parents who came down there and wanted to beat them up because they were making their children work too hard. So we ourselves as black people had internalized this business that we should not expect more of our children. Those teachers from Trinidad understood, saw the evidence of those children being very, very bright and capable of much more than the schools were demanding from them. And they sought, as they were, as committed teachers as they were, to enable those children to work to their highest potential. Even some of their own parents protested about that. So what I wanted to say to you is this. We need to regain for ourselves the belief that our children could be whatever they want to be. First thing. The second thing we need to do is to ensure that we are handing down to them the values that make them fit for living as decent people in a civilized society. And we can't leave it to the schools. So those supplementary schools in Luton that have contributed to the achievements of those children who will get their awards in a minute when I shut up. I want to salute you, those who work in the supplementary schools. I want to salute the community education projects that have supplemented and in some cases corrected what the mainstream schools have been doing. What do I mean by correct? I'm not here to slam anybody. I'm not here to disrespect the good counselor who has a portfolio for education. That's not my business. I'm saying one thing. What I'm saying is this, that the whole schooling system as organized in this society has done our children a massive disservice. We came with our values. We were told they were old-fashioned and we should abandon them. The schools, on the other hand, have not themselves handed on to our children the values that are positive in this racist society. And therefore, when I, who have been living in this place since 1964, struggled with the campaign against racial discrimination in the 1960s, and in Manchester, in Birmingham, Handsworth, in Leicester, Highfields, and then in Moss Side, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, against racism, against racist murders, etc., I now find that we are less concerned as a people about racist murders than we are about our children murdering one another. Serious business. So what that means is that at the same time that we focus upon the educational achievement of our children and having them all achieve to the highest potential, we need to be concerned about our collective experience too. Because if my child gets 10 A-levels and goes to university, and I'm happy about that, I could go around with my head higher than the sky because of the achievements of my child. I'm as proud as hell. And there's another child on the road for whom we have not taken responsibility, then my child is at risk. At risk from some crazed lunatic in a car who decides that it's okay to go shooting outside, drive-by shootings and the rest of it. My child is at risk. No one of us is safe until we make sure that everybody's child is safe. And we have acquired a kind of individuality in this place which is deadly. I, myself, and me. And the 16 years that Margaret Thatcher imposed herself on this country, with the support of the electorate, of course, didn't do us too many favors either, because she cemented that individualism. So the I, myself, and me philosophy is causing harm amongst us. We have to take collective responsibility for what is happening to our children. And I don't care whether they're gunmen, whether they're wicked and bad, I could not give a toss. We have to take responsibility for them, because if we don't, we are at risk. We can't insulate ourselves from their behavior. And the Home Secretary, Mr. David Blunkett. Come on, he's still that. I have to respect the man. The Home Secretary, Mr. David Blunkett, can't build enough prisons and youth custody institutions to contain them all. So let us make it our responsibility. And before I go until midnight, let me just end by saying this. I want to congratulate all of you children for working hard. I want to congratulate your teachers who facilitated your learning and helped you to believe in yourselves. I want to congratulate your parents for supporting you, and all your uncles and aunts and Nana and everybody else. And I want you to believe that you have the capacity to be whatever you want to be, and therefore be the best. Don't let your role models be those who you see around the place who have not done particularly well and who are telling you that it's not worth it. Come and join my gang, come and do this, come and do that. Don't let that be your example and your model. You have one life. And one day you've got to account to God for it. And what matters in life is not how I die or you die or anybody die at whatever age. What matters is how we live our lives now. So let us ensure that we account for everything that we do in our relationships with one another, in our relationship with our friends, with our parents, with our teachers. Let us ensure that that is informed by some principles and some values that make this place a better place for us to live and a better place for our children to inherit. At the age of 15, when in that glorious little island called Grenada, which Ivan nearly obliterated at the beginning of September, I was still a student, going through some real hell from some teachers, some cranks who came from a place called Cork in Dublin. They were Presentation brothers, very religious. They prayed more often than me, but some of them were as brutal as hell. Going through that, but also going through some bullying from rich children in the town who never knew any hardship and were putting down some stuff on me and others who came from the village. I had to tell myself then, and those of you who know me as being a cranky somebody who don't put up with no nonsense from nobody would understand why I had to tell myself then that I would let no one, nothing, render me less than I know I have the capacity to be. And if you could sign on to that too this evening, I shall be very happy.
There is only one Professor Gus John. Certainly, thank you very much, Professor. Very sound and considered words. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your encouragement to each and every one of us. Were you listening to that? Yes. Have you taken it in? Yes. Wow. Just for a moment, just want you to just think on what he's just said, because I'm thinking that all the other words that our speakers have been saying, and kind of who does the buck stop with? The parent. Who does the buck stop with? I don't know about you when you've ever got up in the morning, and I don't know if you've ever looked out the window and it's raining and it looks a bit grey. And because you've got up and it looks a bit grey and it's a bit raining, and so already you've made up in your mind that it's going to be a bad day. Does that make sense? People have ever done that you know of? And maybe my challenge to you is when you get up in the morning, and even if it's raining, or it could be hailing, or it could be very dark and overcast, or it could be, the sun could be shining, but your day is not determined by the weather, but it's determined by your state of mind and how you plan to approach that day. And kind of what I've taken from Professor Gus John is, you know, a lot of things that he had to do when he was going through and that situation in Grenada, is that he had to say to himself, well, no matter what anyone else has said to me, this is the direction that I'm going to go in. I remember going to school, and anyone speak Latin here? Any Latin speaking people? No? Just one over there, okay. So it's one at the back, okay, lovely. Now, I remember when I went to school, and anybody have a school motto? Any child have a school motto? Do they have school mottos nowadays?
Per ardua ad astra.
And that means?
Through hard work, we reach the stars.
Through hard work, okay. Can you, now I went to school, and mine was esse quam videri. And it simply means to be the best that you can be. And do you recognise that? We just recognise what I said, yeah? To be the best that you can be. And I just want to give my own personal thanks and congratulations to each of the children and their parents and their teachers and relations. And I'm going to shut up and get out of the way. I have a habit to talk.